Hello, everyone. Welcome to May 28th, 2025. This is the Hyperlight community meeting. We do have a code of conduct. We follow the CNCF code of conduct. If you have any questions or concerns, you can reach out to any of the leads here. And I think we've dropped the meeting notes into the chat here. So you can find links to various things through there. And yeah, go ahead and make sure you add your name to the meeting notes there. Looks like we have started doing a few of those. Are there any announcements that anybody would like to make today?
Maybe one thing I was just talking about before this we started recording. So just for the recording, usually this is when we would announce our O5 release, um, just to fulfill our train schedule of releasing always at the end of the month. I think there might still be a couple of things we want to include in this release, um, so we might delay it by a week or so, depending on how those PRs work out.
Yeah, it looks like that's in a discussion item too, so maybe
Yeah,
we'll
so we can
do
talk more
more
about it
later.
later.
Okay, sounds good. I also forgot to mention, try to raise your hand if you have anything to add, and we'll make sure we get you called on as we go and start to discuss various things. All right. It says next week's issue wrangling. Maybe push that to the end and we'll do discussion items next. Does that sound about right? Cool. Rust toolchain version. Mark, I think you said you added that.
Yeah, I added that. I think Simon, who mentioned privately he was going to be a few minutes late, also had some concerns here. So we're on the Rust 1.81 tool chain, and still using the 2021 Rust edition. And I've noticed as I've been trying to do a couple more, like trying to maintain our CI images and a lot of the components that we're installing now don't build with at least if you just do cargo install from head, don't build with the Rust 181 toolchain anymore. I think now we're up to cargo fuzz, Minver JS and or Minver RS and UDEPs no longer build with that. And I think we just noticed that some Dependabot PRs for dependency updates are also causing some issues where they no longer build with the Rust 181 toolchain. So I think probably discuss bumping up to that or like bumping that for that. I think that we tried to update to the Rust 2024 edition previously and maybe saw some either build errors, I think specifically in the um, guest execution. Ludwig, did you have any? Were you the one who first uncovered that? Um, or go ahead, Simon.
Yeah, I today I did the PR to implement this. I know that CI is failing, but um, Clippy, Rust format, tests, build, everything passes on my machine locally. So I think it's just an issue with configuration. I know Jorge left a couple of comments, but I think I've resolved all the issues. I actually closed Ludwig's PR in favor of mine after I discovered he'd done that. But there was a ton of merge conflicts in there. It would have taken as long to fix that up as it did for me to do a new one. So um, everything seems to work. The only thing that I have done is fixed formatting at Rust Edition 2021 because that just creates a load of noise in the PR. We can do that separately because the formatting rules have changed. And I think if you run Rust format with 2024 rules, it updates H2 files. So we might as well just do that separately.
Awesome. So yeah,
Um,
and I looked at some of the CI failures right now, and at least on some of the runners, we may need to update common workflow action because of the order that we're doing things, just to make sure that all of the tool chains we're targeting are also getting updated. But that should be pretty minor. I can do that after this meeting. So I guess the next question is, we were talking a little bit about a release. It seems like if we can resolve everything and we're all in favor of it, which version should we set the Rust toolchain TOML file to? And do we want to include that in the next release or immediately after the next release? I think 185 was, I think, the minimum version, what for the that I think we should target. So I don't know if we should just bump it to 185.0 and call it a day for now.
What I did in the PR,
Yep. Okay.
I chose the minimum version for 2024.
And then I think the only other kind of consideration is I think we were possibly maybe having some concerns that other um, people were consuming the Hyperlight crates. We want to make sure that they don't run into issues when we do especially the edition bump. But I don't know if eventually we're gonna need to update it anyway. So, and also, do we want to have this be a minor version bump? I think maybe that's a discussion we need to have in the future about semantic versioning and everything.
Yeah, there are a lot of breaking changes in the next release besides this. I
Oh,
don't think
Jorge,
we
I
have
see.
I don't think we have a strategy for version numbers other than we update the minor version every time we release.
Yeah, and I think Jorge just commented, we don't want to bump to V1, and I agree with that. I realized that after I made those comments. So probably we'll keep this at a minor version bump. David, thoughts?
Yeah, definitely minor version. In I vote for minor version. We're pre one, so keep breaking, break, and then let's get to a point where we stop and say, "Cool, we're good."
Yep. Okay, I think that's kind of everything for that. We'll try and fix the CI and move forward with bumping the edition to 2024 and setting the default Rust toolchain version to 185.
I think the only thing we need to decide is when to merge it, whether we do it now for the next release or whether we wait till later. I asked the AFD folks, they seem to be fine with doing it now, so
Cool. I think the release is the next item on the
Okay.
discussion here, so we can roll right into that and bring and make that decision here. So 05 release was supposed to be today. What else would we like to get into that release, or do we do a quick release today and then follow up with a release when things come available later? That's kind of
I think
discussion point.
the next discussion item, which Dan, did you add that? Might
Yeah, I didn't,
influence
but I
the
think they
release.
all sort of tie in together. Sort of deciding the release also based on threading, and if we decide to go with threading, I guess the delay is enough so that our update on the minimum required first version can also go in with that. So I don't know who added the threading update. Is that you, Simon? Did you want to go over it,
I also realized we're not sharing the
or Simon,
agenda,
you're
so
you're muted?
let me share the agenda real quick. That might help with
no, I did not add that.
Okay.
I didn't add the discussion item anyway, put it that way, but we can talk about it.
I think so we were adding agenda items, so I added that on there when people were talking before we started the recording.
okay.
Um,
Oh.
so uh,
let me tell you what I think, and then we can decide how wrong I am. I think we should delay this release for two reasons. One, as it's a breaking change, I don't know whether Lucy's got to the point of trying to integrate this in any way with Hyperlight WASM, but certainly with Hyperlight JS, I had to make some changes back into Hyperlight in order to get Hyperlight JS to work. So that process takes a little bit of time. The second thing is the threading update is fairly significant. If we don't include that in this release, then it's either going to be another 4 weeks or we're going to have to do another release when that's ready. And I would vote for assuming we can get the threading release merged by the beginning of next week, let's say Monday, then I would vote to delay, but that's just my opinion.
I'm finishing up to answer your question, really, Simon. I'm finishing up updating the Hyperlight side of the component model stuff, rebasing that, and testing and documenting and everything in the next day or two. So I'll bring Hyperlight WASM up to date and fix any breaking changes with that over the next few days as well. But that won't be today. So I would also vote for pushing the release till next week. Yeah.
Sorry, that was probably the other thing. That branch we have to support Hyperlight WASM component
ideally
model.
we would also get that
we probably want
merged
to
in
merge that as well
for that release as well.
Yeah,
which I think is probably doable if we push it to next Wednesday.
So Jorge asked in the chat there, what's the challenge with doing two releases? He thought we reserved the right to be able to do releases more than 4 weeks. I guess I would add on to that is how hard is it to do a release? Like, is that something we should, does it take a couple hours or does it take a day? And do we want to get better
Actual
at that
release
type of thing?
process is mostly automated. It doesn't take that long. I think the most time-consuming part of the release process is ingesting the new releases into the different like Hyperlight WASM, and if there's is like identifying any issues there. I want to take a look at what went in, but I kind of am leaning, at least my opinion is leaning more towards with Jorge, or that maybe we should try and get a release out with what we have in already in the O5 or 0.5.0 release. And I mean, maybe take a look at the release note or like the what's included in there. And if there is not that much substantial changes in there, wait for the component model release. But if there is like a decent amount of changes, why don't we release with what we have and then do another release with the component model work? Go ahead.
Yeah, and there are a few breaking changes that I included that would go in this release. So from the perspective of updating the dependencies, it is going to be a bit painful. So maybe we want to wait so that we have to do that pain only once, or maybe we don't want to wait so that we split the pain in two different steps. So I'm okay with either way, but yeah.
I've done that updating for Hyperlight JS, but I know there's at least one more breaking change in the PR queue that is, if it merges, will require another change in Hyperlight JS. I suppose my perspective is twofold. One, there's no compelling reason for us to do a release other than we said we'd do one every 4 weeks, and that might be good enough. The second is if we don't do a release, there's more pressure on us to get everything wrapped up in order to do a release next week. Whereas if we do a release, that pressure sort of subsides a little bit and then things can slide a bit more. So, I'd like to keep the pressure on to try and get those things in personally, but like I say, I don't mind either way ultimately.
Yeah, I think
To
we do want
answer
to keep
James,
kind of the
sorry,
release.
Mark, one second.
Or,
To answer your question, James, about releases, it has been very painful. I think we've got better at it. I can't remember who did the last couple, but I think it's better than it was, and it's probably in the hours range to release Hyperlight rather than days. But like Jorge said, there's downstream impacts, and it's iterating on that will be painful if we don't do that work up front.
I think I'll give a +1 here to Jorge's idea, mostly because I feel like if we're committing to a train schedule, um, we should probably stick to it. Because if we don't stick to it now, I think there's no promise that we'll stick to it next month. And this sort of like a slippery slope of delays that I think we should try and avoid to fall into. If we make the release now, and if the concern is that we won't have pressure to get these changes in quick enough, I feel like that pressure is artificial enough so that we can just establish that we'll have a release and say, mid-month, because we hold that right, like or in the comment, to make releases more constant than in just 4 weeks time. We can establish that we have another release in 2 weeks that will give us time to get the hypervisor handler threading changes in. Lucy's work with component model by engine, also updating Hyperlight WASM to with the breaking changes from Jorge and perhaps Hyperlight the hypervisor handler. I think there's quite enough work that perhaps if we split it into smaller chunks and do part of the breaking change work right now will make our life easier to fulfill the upcoming deadline that we can set.
I don't know how to raise my hand since I think I'm sharing the screen. But I was gonna say too, like I think it's good to keep kind of the releases going once a month. I'm okay delaying for like until next week in order to clean things up too. But if there are a lot of breaking changes in there, it'd be good to kind of flush those out, in my opinion. So
Sorry, Zoom crashed on me, so I missed part of the conversation, but it kind of sounds like um, we've kind of landed on doing the release today. Does that sound about right, or is there some objections to that?
No, I think that sounds about right. I think I was just going to say before you came back, who's going to do it?
I I would hop in and do that. Something for
Okay.
me to learn a little bit about the processes and things. So if there's some documentation, you can point me at it, and I will ask questions as I learn as I go.
yeah, identify the pain points if you haven't done a release before. There should be a markdown doc that's checked in or in the
Yeah,
contributing somewhere.
I'll add that to the notes. I can also share in the chat.
Okay. So that would be today or tomorrow?
Well, do we want to I see Lucy just added a comment in the chat. And
Okay.
also, do we want like if the toolchain versioning is ready to go, do we want to potentially delay like a day or two for that? I think we just need to fix up CI. And then Lucy mentioned the concern is mainly that if we release today, then even the old the componentary version of Hyperlight WASM, which is supposed to be stable, will be broken against the released version, which is true.
Yeah, but I think the version we published will work, right? The version in crates.io will work. It's just if you try and I don't know about main because I don't know what the state of main is versus Hyperlight. I imagine it's certainly not going to work with the latest version, but the old version is still going to be there. So I don't know.
Yeah, and like part of that ingesting those updates is revving the dependency crates, right? So I think anything that's like a git ref, if people are using a git reference, that wouldn't work. But
to your second point, Mark, I think if we're going to do it, we'll just do it with what's in there now, and we can pick all the other stuff up next time. If we're going to do another one next week.
Works for me.
Cool. All right.
Sorry,
Thanks,
so
Dan,
are
for
we
that.
set? Are we set on making the release tomorrow after we try to merge the 185 work?
No,
I think
that's what I'm
Simon
saying
said
is
just
we'll
go.
Other one?
just go for it now. If we're going to do it
Okay.
today, let's do it today. Let's not wait for one thing. We're either going to
Yeah,
wait for the things we want, or we're going to do it.
Okay.
especially if we've got the PRs set up to consume the like what we're going to be releasing now. I mean, we may need to make more follow-up PRs to fix up the Hyperlight WASM repo for 185 and everything too. So I could see it just kind of creeping out. So yeah.
Okay. And then do we want to set time for the I'm guessing V06 release? You mentioned next week, Simon?
Yeah, I think we have to sort of aim to get this done. I'd like to hear from Ludwig on what's. I haven't had a chance, unfortunately, to look at his PR, so I don't know what state it's in. Whether he thinks we can get everything done for that by next Wednesday. If so, we should say we'll do a release next Wednesday.
I think Ludwig said his mic
Can you
is
hear
not
me right
working.
now? Hello?
Yeah,
Oh, we can.
yeah.
Okay. So if we're talking about the threading changes, I have a draft PR that's ready to review, but I would like to discuss it maybe more seeing if the API is acceptable or not.
Okay.
Maybe we could do that in this meeting if we have more time.
Got 13 minutes.
Yeah. So let's park the question about
When
V6, but let's have an ambition to do it next Wednesday, and let's talk about threading in the meantime.
Before we do that, can we just say that I think it sounded like there's three things we wanted to get into the 036, which is threading, WASM, and the version 2024 bump.
the
Is that the
component
three?
model
Okay.
changes, I think, yeah.
So yeah, is there anything else that we wanted to get into those in there, or is that like the major focus for the next week
I
to
think
get those?
Jorge mentioned he may have some other changes that would be breaking again. I don't know if those are like things that we want to gate the release on. Somebody else can comment. I haven't looked at those changes yet, but I mean, if they're ready to go in, that's also that's great.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think it should be. I think it should be additive, right? I mean, they're the three things we have to get in. If we put other stuff in, fine.
Okay, that sounds good.
All right, so we're discussing component bindgen, Rust toolchain updates, and the third item,
The
Threading.
threading. Yeah. This is for tentatively next Wednesday. I'll also say I would like to. I haven't made the PR yet, but I'm putting it out soon. It's just splitting our current Hyperlight guest crate into just a core Hyperlight guest and a Hyperlight guest bin. The name is sort of tentative, but it's sort of the more opinionated bits of our Hyperlight guest library, so that people can consume the Hyperlight, just the core bits of it, without, say, committing to a panic handler or things that perhaps shouldn't be on the main library. So I'll get that into. It should be essential.
Sounds good. I think yeah, let's should we move the discussion to the threading model so we have a little bit of time to discuss before the meeting gets shut down.
Yeah.
Vic, do you want to take the floor? You want to share your screen, or how do you want to?
Yes, let me go ahead. Sharing my screen. Uh, okay, can you guys see my screen?
Yeah.
Yes, I see a
Yes.
VS Code screen now.
You might want
Okay,
to zoom in on the text if you want to show something specific.
Yeah.
let me find the file.
How do you check how much time we have left, Mark?
My host view says
Oh, okay.
that it's a 40-minute meeting. I think at 10 minutes it'll start counting down.
Okay, we have this. So let me zoom in, sorry. Can you see this on my screen right now?
Yes.
Okay, so we have this hypervisor trait that people are probably familiar with. It has a dispatch call from host, handle IO, run, and so on. I'm adding a function to it called interrupt handle that returns a arc interrupt handle. This interrupt handle in itself is a trait that has two functions. It has kill and dropped. If you call kill on it, it will interrupt the corresponding sandbox's vCPU if it's running. So I said here, if this is called while the vCPU is running, it will interrupt the vCPU and return true. If it's not running, it will do nothing and return false. Now, the way we do this is on Linux is I have this Linux interrupt handle. And the kill function here. Oh, Simon, do you have a question?
Yeah, I wanted to clarify what you meant by running.
Okay, so for example, in KVM, there's this call to self.vcpfd.run.
Yeah.
And this leaves user space and goes into some kernel space.
Yeah.
And this can be interrupted by sending a signal.
Yeah.
So if the signal arrives while we're inside this call, then it's interrupted.
Uh,
But let's say the signal happens in before we call that, then the signal doesn't do anything, right? So
right.
does that make sense?
Yeah. So if the signal was to arrive as the VM has exited to say
Uh-huh.
call a guest function, and
Yeah.
we were about to call a guest function, then the thing would not get killed.
Right. So I added this running. This is an atomic bool that is set to true before we call run, and it's set to false after we call run. So it's supposed to kind of indicate whether or not we're inside this run call or not.
Mm-hmm.
And
But
when you
presumably there's a gap, right? Because
exactly, so there's a gap. And so what happens when you call kill is that it checks the same atomic bool. If it's true, which means the VM is kinda in that running state, right? It keeps sending a signal until it's set to false again. So it basically just spams the signal over and over and over until the the thread is reached this point. Um, but if I send it before, or if I call kill before the atomic bool is even set to true, then I won't even enter this while loop, and the kill won't do anything.
That's similar to the mechanism we have right now, right? We have, I remember a call that just spams
Yeah,
signals to terminate on one. Like, yeah, okay.
that's right. The interrupt handle also has this dropped function, so you can check if the sandbox has been dropped. So when, for example, this KVM sandbox is dropped, I added this implementation. It just stores true in there. And here is the interrupt handling. So any ideas or opinions about this, or things we want to change?
See Mark as enough.
Yeah, I haven't looked at the rest of the PR, and this may be forward thinking, but do we want to potentially consider like a graceful kill signal too? Especially for some of the more like exploratory work that Dan's been doing for long running things, like um you essentially like a sig term versus a sig kill, where we may wait until the run is completed and then kill, and depending on workloads that are running, let them, clean up gracefully or give them a little bit of a grace period to react to that too. Just a thought. And like I said, I haven't read everything yet.
Um, I have not thought about that yet.
I
I,
see. I think Lucy just added a comment in the chat too, saying probably better for that to be designed separately along with the async API. Which is yeah, like I said, I haven't looked at this yet, but maybe we should consider that scenario.
yeah, I feel like this should be a more efficient version of what we have now, functionally. Two questions, Ludwig, if I may. One, you store this drop state. How does that get cleaned up if the
So
sandbox has been dropped?
yeah, so each driver has an interrupt handle that's always created, but it's in an arc. So if somebody has a handle to the interrupt handle, the arc has two references. So when the KVM
Okay,
driver gets dropped, it's still there.
got it. So I can't remember the code base well enough to know whether that KVM driver can be used for a new sandbox.
It can't.
Okay. And the second question was, why can't we kill in the gap between the first run and the kill arriving before the vCPU run?
So
Because we handle that case now, right?
um
Also, 3-minute warning too.
Okay.
oh, I'm not sure. I can't remember exactly how we do it right now, Dan. But I think if we time out right now, I guess we must just keep sending the signal forever until it
Sorry, so
settles.
what was the question?
We definitely do that. How do we kill the thing before it's even started running? If we were to time out before vCPU run has been called,
Yeah.
we can go check the code. No worries. We can do this in the review. I just thought you might know the answer.
Yeah, I can't remember. Look
Okay.
at this performance increase though. Okay, yeah. Anyway.
Yeah, cool.
Nice.
Yeah, if somebody wants to have a chat about this after this meeting, I'd be happy to talk.
I will have a look at the PR
Okay,
probably after your lunchtime. I've got things on until then, but
sounds good.
excellent. Good stuff.
Right. I think we're gonna lose our meeting here pretty quickly.
Yeah, we got 90
So
seconds left.
all right. So anything can be followed up in Slack. Thanks for joining today, and we'll hope to see you in a couple weeks.
Thank you. See you.
Bye.
All right, thanks
Thanks
everyone.
all.
See you next time.
Later.
Bye.